Hey, and welcome back to Kurtski's Garage, episode number 2. If you've made it this far, I want to send a sincere thank you because I know episode 1 was, well, not rushed, but it was certainly a learning curve. And there's going to be a lot of that, not only with wrenching on the cars, but putting together a show. I do short audio and video podcasts for my other business, but I'll tell you, it's very basic stuff, focusing on a lot of technical content, and this is a different ball game, so thanks for sticking with me. So I wanted to give you a brief rundown of what we're going to do on the show. First of all, we're going to take a slight out of time time trip, time warp, time something to putting the black steering wheel in my SL. Just a couple of clips, about 3 minutes on that. Then we're going to go into the Airmatic Schadenfreude, where you get to laugh at me, hence Schadenfreude. The repair I thought was successful did not hold after the test drive, and we'll go through a little bit of a further diagnostic and ultimately replacing the right front air strut. I'd have to say there are probably things I've done that are more challenging, but I don't show you the entire repair dismantling procedure because, quite frankly, I'm just one person. I'm still figuring out the best camera angles and how to edit everything, and you don't need to watch me go through all of this stuff, but I show you the results, I show you the parts both in and out, and we'll focus on how things get fixed. I think that's pretty fair. So I made some notes, and after that, after the Airmatic, we go back to Barrie NAPA Autocare. I've got some parts for the car to deliver, and we're going to do a complete, proper undercarriage review of the vehicle. It's up on a hoist right now while they work on a wheel bearing. The part for that should be in by the end of this week. I'm into the first week of September at the time of this filming, 2025, and the part should be in hopefully on Friday, and it will not take long to button up, issue the safety certificate, then I can get the plates for the car, and we can actually do a proper review and a proper introduction, but you're going to see her underside. And then to wrap up the show, since I was heading up to the boat to do some work on the long weekend, the Labor Day weekend, I took the SL500, and I thought it would be good to do sort of a driving impressions and review and, my thoughts on this car. We'll do a little bit more on the outside and some of the things that I did to just do some very mild customizing, nothing major, and you could tell from the shots you've seen in the car, like the opening sequence from episode 1, there really wasn't anything too crazily done to the car to modify it, but there were a few things, and we'll just go through that really quickly. But the driving impressions I thought was a fun thing to do, and yeah, you get to listen to me ramble on for 15 or 20 minutes about all of these little details of owning the R230 platform. Mine is 19 years old. I guess they debuted in 02 or 03. I can't quite remember, maybe even 01. But if you're going to get into one, there's some things you should know about the systems, and I do try and outline that for you. So today's episode, a little bit longer, a little bit more content, more wrenching of vehicles off camera, spare you that. And here we go with getting into the steering wheel swap on that SL500. Enjoy, and thanks for your comments. I appreciate everything. The DMs, I really appreciate it. And if you out there have a really cool car that you would like me to have a look at, if you're in Ontario somewhere, maybe somewhere close, I'm in Barrie, Ontario, contact me. We'll get together, we'll do a little driving impressions video and show your ride off. I'm happy to do that. So here we go with the SL500 steering wheel swap, and then we'll get back to the Schadenfreude Airmatic. Take care. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at you again soon. Okay guys, welcome back to Kurtski's driveway, I guess. Just to show you, we have disconnected both the consumer battery in the SL500 as well as the main start. So the start battery is also disconnected. I'm going to save you the agony of watching me take the steering wheel off, but I wanted to show you what the old steering wheel looks like. So this is the area that I tried to re-dye, sort of picking up on the darker gray. It was a little too dark, but the leather was just not in good shape here, and it would take a lot of work to try and bring that around. So give me about 15 minutes or so, and we will get the steering wheel changed and show you the results. Hang tight. Okay folks, it's the next morning. I got the steering wheel replaced, but I had a little issue. The airbag light did come on, and I tried resetting it last night, but it just did not seem to do anything. So I tried again this morning, and the airbag light went off. At any rate, have a look at that. Black steering wheel. It's darker wood, but it's the same wood as the wheel that came off the car. So I guess at some point in time, somebody actually put a wood steering wheel on it. But you know, the car's been around for almost 20 years, so it had a life before my family took it over. At any rate, let's have a look. Let's start it. And of course, the suspension never sits level because this is active body control in a 20-year-old car, and it's temperamental. Now, first position, we see the SRS light. Start the engine, out it goes. So we are good. How about that? Absolutely love, love, love it. And next, we're just going to raise the car. Yep, and there we go. Everything is level again. So I might very well have a little bit of a issue with the active body control. I'll inspect it later. It's not the sort of thing you want to ignore. So we'll shut her off, but there you go. I love, love, love that black steering wheel. It just makes the car look so much sportier. There you go, and another look. And I just happened to throw a rag over it just to protect the wood from the sunlight, because right now these cars do live outdoors. Huh. It is a beast. I do love the SL. I think it's a great car. I think it is just great. And welcome back to the Schadenfreude edition of Kurtski's Garage. We'll call this episode 2 because I think I've got enough in the can to make a full episode. So we're doing a run to the dump this morning, taking some old car parts and some other stuff that have been lying around the house. I just wanted to show you some parts I took out of the CLS last week. So we've got the Airmatic compressor. This is the joys of having a Canadian car. You can see the corrosion, even though there's a plastic cover that sits underneath, or covering this rather, underneath the car. It doesn't matter, stuff gets in, and the compressor certainly met an untimely end. This is the valve block, so the compressor pumps into that, and this block, with the aid of some electronics in the brain in the car, distributes the airflow to each of the struts, and the reservoir that's inside of the driver's side rear fender. Now, just to show you the level of crud, this is the bracket. Get out of there. This is the bracket that actually holds the Airmatic compressor. It was pretty badly seized in, and the compressor was seized to it, and it was just a lost cause trying to do anything with that. It was about 50 bucks Canadian for a new stamping, so not a big deal. Now, I had mentioned in the last episode that I was 2 for 2 on problematic Mercedes suspension, and this is where the Schadenfreude comes in. Are you ready for this? Let's go and have a look at it. This is a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. Does that look fixed to you? Nope. Not one bit. So the car did survive overnight. That was not staged for effect. It survived. The ride height was equal between front and rear. But as soon as I took it on a test drive, after proclaiming the job was done, the suspension dropped again. First on this strut. You know, I got the dreaded message, car too low, stop. The compressor did its best to try and raise the car so I could get home safely, but it just simply did not hold. So after more reading and making sure that I was doing the right thing, I ordered, here we have it, a new air strut. Interestingly enough, I found one for sale on a local online marketplace, contacted the vendor, and he had already sold it and unfortunately did not take the listing down. But the part number that he referenced led me to a company I had already been doing some business with on parts for this car, Parts Avatar. So I ordered this particular air suspension air strut from them. I paid for it as not a comp by any means. So we're going to do an unboxing a bit later today of this air strut, and we're going to go through the process of installing it on the CLS, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, that will bring an end to this particular repair, because I need to get this car on the road for my fiance, and I need to get on to other things, because the project car, the W126 300 SEL, which I haven't even done a formal introduction yet, that should be ready for pickup early this coming week. So bear with me. We're going to do a run to the dump, and a little bit later, when there's company here, my fiance's friends are coming over for an afternoon visit. I'm going to tear into this, and we'll put this one to bed, I hope, once and for all. So bear with me, and we will catch you in a little bit. Okay, welcome back to Kurtski's Garage. We are going to start with the front strut replacement on the 2017 Mercedes CLS550 Airmatic. So in preparation for that, I have raised the car. Actually, I had to start the car first to get the front end lifted so I could get even the low profile jack underneath it and start the process safely. Under no circumstances do you work under a car without jack stands. I've got one, probably not in the most optimal place, but it will hold the car, and then one under the sway bar mount. Next thing, I removed the dust cover. There we go, the dust cover, and 2 out of the 3 bolts, they are E12 fasteners holding the strut to the top of the car, and disconnected the actual air line, and that took a 10mm wrench. So I thought next we would have a look at the replacement strut. And the unboxing, I unboxed it off camera because it was really just opening the box, and there it was. So we've got, the air bladder there. This is where it mounts to the car frame, and you can see that that actually does pivot. Some of the aftermarket brands do not have a pivoting mounting plate, as I understand. This is built to OE spec at about half the cost of the Mercedes dealer price. So we're going to go ahead and remove the fasteners. Let me get a flashlight. We've got fasteners holding some brake electronics. We've got to be very, very careful with that. We've got to remove the sway bar link. That is a Torx 40. And then we've got a couple of bolts on the side to get out of. And yep, there's one. I think there's one other one hiding. And then we very gently lower the lower control arm, and we can remove the assembly. I'll undo the remaining fastener. Up here you can see I've got one in place just to hold everything, and we'll get the strut out. So give me a couple minutes and we'll get that done. So that was a couple hours worth of work to change the strut. I use hand tools. I don't have any air tools here, and I don't have any of those fancy 12 or 18 volt impact guns. Wish I did. It would have made things a whole heck of a lot easier. But the strut is in. We've got the car started, and I'm just going to let you see. It is up. I think it's still slightly high on the passenger side. So we're going to take it for a road test after I torque down that wheel, and just get myself cleaned up and maybe just have a breather, and we'll see what happens. But I will let you know. We'll be back in a few minutes. So here we are post test drive at the garage, and it's a mixed bag. So on the good side, The car runs fine. I mean, it's a sweet engine, the 4.7 twin turbo V8 4MATIC, great engine. I did not have any problems with the air suspension going flat, giving me that warning of car too low, stop driving. Everything was good in that respect. But we're kind of back to the original problem of the passenger side being too high. It's just kind of weird. I'm going to take you out of the garage for a moment and you can have a look and see for yourself. She is not level. And I think that's pretty obvious to see. And if you really want to see, look at the opening above the wheels on the passenger side versus the driver's side. This is where the car should be sitting. So the passenger side is still sitting high. Was it the correct step replacing the air strut? Absolutely. Here is the air strut that I took out. Now, looking at things like, for example, the protective boot, that's all in one piece, but we've got an electrical connector there. Who knows, that could be corroded. It's just too difficult to suggest where the failure is on that particular part, but the car seems to be standing on its own 2 feet or 4 tires, as the case may be. We'll let it sit overnight. We'll see if the suspension droops, and I'm going to do some reading on what may cause this particular condition, and maybe worst case scenario, it just simply has to go to a dealer or an independent mechanic who has the star system and can set the level of the vehicle, because it may not be able to do it itself. I have the iCarSoft version 2.0. It gives me some basic diagnostics and the ability to clear some codes, but I can't do the so-called rodeo and setting the car's height. So maybe that's all that it's going to take to button this up. But I'm going to do a little bit more research on it, and we'll see where we are in the morning. Until then, have a great night. I know I'm going to have a well-deserved beer and take it easy. Bye for now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sunday morning edition of Kurtski's Garage, the post-test drive on the 2017 CLS after the front right air strut replacement. So I got up this morning to have a look at the car, and it was still sitting fairly lopsided. Passenger side, I think a little high, and the driver's side sitting, in my opinion, I think where it should be for the sport setting, which will actually lower the car. Comfort raises it ever so slightly, and then beyond that, there's another switch to raise the car even further, which could be helpful if you're stuck in a lot of snow or something like that. You don't want the front air dam to act as a snow plow. You just want to drive over everything. But regardless, it was still sitting a little lopsided. And after doing some reading, I came up with, some reading, and based on my experience last week replacing the compressor and air block, when I had the car completely depressurized, changing the compressor and the valve block, the front suspension dropped all the way to the bump stops, and I had jack stands under the rear. So the car was in this sort of weird airmatic yoga pose, downward car, I guess. But when I started it, the car came back to its correct ride height. So that got me thinking, what if I were to replicate that this morning, like after the strut is in? And I did test drive it yesterday with the strut replaced, and everything's holding. It's doing exactly what it should. There's no leaks, no warnings, no nothing. So I'm calling that a success. So I thought, well, what are we going to do to deal with the situation here? And I'll show you what I did. It's very, very simple. So my thought was, and let me grab the flashlight first here. There we go. So this is the top of the strut. You can see there are 3 bolts there, E12s. I had to remove those as part of the process to change the strut. But you could see the air fitting. I'm just going to point to it right there. I'm not getting an awful lot of light here with the hood up. Well, at any rate, that's the fitting. 10 millimeter wrench, I just loosened that, and I bled the air out of the system. Don't do it quickly, there's no point. Just nice and easy does it. Now, when that is actually bled out, that air, the whole front of the car will drop. The Airmatic system, I'm not sure how the logic or the brains of it all works, but it would appear that when one strut is deflated, it will deflate or drop that entire axle. And in doing so, I think it sort of relearned where the home position was of the car. Because after dropping the suspension, tightening that 10 millimeter bolt going, the air line into the top of the strut, and starting the car up and allowing the compressor to go, it brought it up to an equal height, like left to right. So I was very happy with that. And again, on the test drive, I don't think anything seemed to phase it. I changed ride height, I changed sport to comfort setting, and everything was good. Now, getting back home, having a look at it, I think it's still sitting maybe half an inch high, if that, on the passenger side. So we're just going to leave it for the time being. I'll monitor it, but that little procedure of bleeding the air and restarting the car with the Airmatic yoga downward car pose was a pretty easy fix. It's just a few minutes, and if it persists, I'll try it again. I do think it probably would require a proper diagnostic, like an OBD2 hookup, to reset the car's height. I just don't happen to have one. And after spending all this money on the compressor and the valve block and the strut, and then the things that went on the SL, the hydraulic pressure accumulators, and we've got the project car, the 1990 300 SEL, likely ready to be picked up next week. Hey, that's it. Treasury needs to be recharged. Also worth noting, changing that strut, that took me approximately 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, because I did stop halfway through just for a little rest. But that was using nothing but hand tools. I don't have an air compressor or air tools or one of these really nice cordless impact drivers. That was straight hand tools, and we got the job done in about 2 hours. I was pretty sore after, I have to admit. I'm probably showing my age, but sitting on a concrete garage floor, cross-legged or whatever the case, yeah, that hurt a little bit, but it's all good. It's a good hurt, and I saved a ton of money, and we're keeping this 2017 CLS higher mileage Benz, 280,000 K. We're going to keep it in service as long as we possibly can. My line in the sand is engine or transmission problems. That will be where I say no more. But everybody's got their threshold based on what you can afford and what your abilities are. But I'm happy to say this car can go back into service without any problems or any concerns. Touch wood. And there we go. So hopefully the next recording you'll see will be picking up the project car, and we'll give you a proper tour of that because it is a wonderful vehicle. It's worth preserving, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So there we are. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm taking the afternoon off. So long. And we're back at Barrie NAPA Autocare recording and getting good sound volume. How about that? It's Monday, August 25th, and I had a call from Dave, the shop owner, saying that there's another little problem with our 300 SEL project car. But it was an opportune time to come down, video it. We're going to show you the underside of the car because it's still on a hoist. We'll talk about what this little problem is, and we've got some parts to drop off, which I'll show you. These came from Pelican Parts, and I did buy the parts. They are not comp to me in any way. We've got a rocker cover gasket for the 3-liter straight 6 and the proper Mercedes-Benz wiring harness loom holder thing. So that's nice in place because the current one is held in with electrical tape and it looks pretty messy. So without further ado, we're going to go in and have a look at our misbehaving Mercedes. See you in a sec. So here I am inside of Barrie NAPA Autocare. Dave showed me what's going on with the car, and basically we've got an issue with the entire carrier. This is the passenger side rear. The bearings had to be replaced, but the machine, the casting, if you will, that holds the bearings was damaged. The threads were stripped out, so somebody tried to repair it at one point in time and it didn't quite work out. So we're getting a new hub, and I get the tool, the special Mercedes tool right there to tighten the nut. So underneath, I mean, look, we've got some rust on the exhaust system. I'm not worried about that. And underneath the pumpkin of the differential, but look at everything else. I mean, it's so bloody clean. There's a little bit of surface rust on a few things. Look at the control arms on the suspension. It's all good. Look at this stuff, that little bit surface rust, but look at the pinch welds. Everything's clean there. Everything's clean there, as you saw from the first video I did underneath the car. Like, it's all good. We've got one new caliper sitting there. This one looks to be, I'm not going to say it's original, but it's been replaced likely too. Everything's good there. There are no leaks anywhere, which is super. We just identified a couple of muffler clamps that have to go on. That's no big deal. There he is. Hey, Dave. So we're going to get a couple of muffler clamps on there. No big deal. Going forward on this, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is potentially a little crusty, but you know what? It's going to last for as long as I want to have the vehicle, and given the mileage it's going to see, I'm not worried about it one iota. So, coming forward here, we've got transmission mounts. You know, obviously up here, we've got the drive shaft, the tranny oil pan, the main oil pan. We did notice that there was some dampness coming down from that side of the engine, which we can trace to a rocker cover gasket, which is why I brought that in for them to put on, as well as the spark plug wire loom. Again, look at the front. Now, we've got some surface rust on the control arms. That's no big deal. That's not going to interfere with anything at all. But, you know, take a close look at the pinch welds all throughout the car, and it's incredibly clean. There's nothing to be concerned about here. It's just a really good, solid project car to start on. So once we get this little bit of stuff done with the vehicle, I'll just get my screen on again. Once we get this little bit of stuff done, we can devise a plan to refinish the bumpers. The bumpers are good. I mean, there's a little war wound there, but they're not damaged, they're not cracked, everything's good on them. We'll get them repainted, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with the tires. They're perfectly acceptable as they are, but we may want to do an upgrade on them. Maybe a Lorenzer 16 or 17, something like that, or a BBS, whatever. We'll figure that out, and there's a couple of paint spots that have to be dealt with as well. But there we are. Still no regrets. A little bit of a financial ouchie getting all these things done, but by the time it's all said and done, still have a super solid car that's going to be a lot of fun to wrench on. And there we go. We're going to head out, leave everyone to get back to work, and crank the tunes. Well, as you can see by this wonderful day that we have outside, gray and overcast, it must be heading into a long weekend. And that means I'm heading up to the boat for the final bit of R&R of the summer. I thought I would take the opportunity, since it's about half hour, 45 minutes or so, to do a mini review of my 06 Mercedes SL500, the R230 series with the retractable hardtop. So I showed you a little bit of the exterior of the car on the episode 1 opener, where I do my silly little parody of some of the guys that I love watching on YouTube car reviews. But you know, the R230, it's got a reputation as being a very complicated car, and I'll tell you it is. That doesn't necessarily mean it should be precluded from being on your list of fun cars to enjoy. The R230 has got, I would say, 3 main super complexities to it. First, the retractable hardtop. Now, it's not so much that the top is steel and that somehow magically makes it more complicated. It's the actuators from everywhere up here in the headliner, the header panel rather, buried in the headliner, the hydraulic lines, the opening trunk, the flaps that extend out from the trunk that form part of the hard tonneau cover, and then finally just the entire mechanism. But if you look at the previous generation, the R129, it had a lot of very similar things. The hard tonneau cover would open, the top was fully automatic and electric and hydraulic, and certainly with time the hydraulic cylinders leak. It's the O-rings, right? You have hydraulic fluid in them, and the fluid over time attacks the O-rings. And these, 5-cent or 10-cent parts cause major hydraulic leaks, and I'm sure there are cases of many a nice suits being destroyed when the top goes down and high pressure hydraulic fluid leaks on them. So those are things to beware. But honestly, any convertible top that self-latches at the header panel, the windshield, you could have the same kind of issues. Don't let that throw you with one of these cars. Now, the next two things may be too much for you. We'll go to Sensortronic braking, or SBC. Basically, this is a brake-by-wire system. It debuted, I believe, in this car and the SL. I forget which generation, but it was the generation that was about the same time, maybe the W220. And most notably, it appeared on the McLaren SLR. Interesting system. It does yield a different kind of brake feel. You don't necessarily feel as connected, but believe me, you can adapt to it. It's not like it's a completely foreign feeling. It's just somewhat less connected. Honestly, not that big a deal, and I don't think you should step away from one of these cars because of the SBC. Matter of fact, Mercedes has a 25-year warranty on it. Check your jurisdiction for details. So this car is 19 years. That would imply I would have another 6 years to have SBC replaced. Of course, the lower cost option is to buy a digital device, and this car's had that procedure done. You plug it in and essentially not fully reset the actuations of SBC, but you dial it back a little bit and you buy yourself some time. So that's an option. And I think those are, $100 on, if it's not eBay or Amazon, or I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. So what's the last thing? Well, the last thing that makes this car unusually complex, it's the ABC system, active body control. So what does that mean? ABC is a hydraulic suspension system. You start with a duplex power steering pump, low pressure on the front side for the steering rack, and high pressure for the suspension system on the back side. Okay, fine. If you're around industrial equipment at all, I mentioned I have a plastics company. Plastics processing equipment uses hydraulics, has for a long time. I mean, they're all electric machines now, but there are still plenty of hydraulic plastics equipment. Heavy moving equipment uses hydraulics. That's how they work. And they can literally move heaven and earth, or earth anyway. So hydraulic is a means of taming high pressure and mechanical leverage and whatnot. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Just beware, this system, it will require maintenance. It is not a coil spring setup where you can essentially forget about it. But even in a conventional coil spring setup system, you'd have shock absorbers that would have to be replaced. It is what it is. Citroen pioneered this kind of system with the 1955 release of the DS. Still an outstanding car. It's infamous for having adjustable ride height, which this also does, and the car could be driven on 3 wheels. I don't think you could do that with this one. I wouldn't even attempt it. Matter of fact, I don't think it's designed to have that kind of balance. But the Citroen system didn't just stay with the DS. It made its way to the Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow of the 1960s. And Rolls-Royce, they paid a license fee to Citroën to use that technology. In later years, in Mercedes time now, the W116, the S-Class of the 70s, if you will, used hydropneumatic suspension, the same hydraulic system on the top line 450 SEL 6.9. In some markets, just simply known as the 6.9. Matter of fact, I have a Canadian market brochure from 1979 calling it simply the 6.9. That car, same idea. You have hydraulic pressure accumulators, hydraulic rams instead of coilovers, and it's a lovely system. I'll tell you, when it works, when it's well sorted and working, nothing rides like an SBC equipped Mercedes. It is so incredibly smooth. You can control between a comfort and sport setting if you wish, and you can raise the car, I want to say, 1.5 inches. In the case of the SL, it's handy if you're going up an incline and you've got a deep front air dam, or I put a very mild lower dam extension. This is the base model SL, so I wanted to dress up the front a little bit. Very, very nice to be able to hit a button twice to get your full height extension and just simply drive up over a curve, or if the car has to be loaded on the back of a flatbed, ask me how I know, it certainly makes that procedure a little bit easier rather than bringing out the 2x6s and trying to drive it up onto a ramp. So I got this car 3 seasons ago, bought it from my dad, who had it for 10 or 11 years. We were just talking about it earlier in the week, and let's just call it 10 years. He had to put a couple of SBC struts in the back. You typically, and best practice, to replace them on an axle, not just a one, should replace both. And they were about 2,500 Canadian a piece. That was a big ouch. When I got the car, the front was sagging, so I knew that was a front valve block. I had already done my research on it. You can buy a rebuild kit, and you're basically replacing the O-rings, those 5 or 10 cent O-rings again. Just as they fail in the header panel of the convertibles, they'll fail in SBC. ABC. It's not Senstronic braking here, it's ABC, active body control. And remember, the system runs at about 3,000 PSI. So that's a lot of pressure on all the components to retain fluid under pressure. So it's probably not a surprise that these things actually fail. So I was unfortunately not able to utilize the rebuild kit, as the valve block containing 4 solenoids had 1 solenoid that was permanently seized in, and I ended up having to order a new valve body from overseas, and it came in a couple of weeks, put it in, and I had my car running again. But that didn't eliminate another problem that I had to deal with recently. When I would hit a bump, a certain kind of geometry, a bump that would pitch the back end of the car skyward, a warning light would come on, ABC, drive carefully. Didn't understand fully what that implied, but I had a hunch it may be a pressure accumulator. And back in mid-July, the pressure accumulator for the back did blow. When that happens, you get the full discharge of the high pressure nitrogen in the accumulator blowing out through the hydraulic line, creating a puddle under the car because it goes to the hydraulic fluid reservoir. And that's exactly what happened here. So I had to order 2 pressure accumulators, because I'll do the front one as well, replace that. They came from Germany, took about 2 weeks, and it was maybe an hour's job to replace the rear. It's actually not that difficult. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube. I looked at one from D-Ray's Garage. It was quite a methodical step-by-step process. I followed that, got the job done, and immediately when I put the car back on its wheels, it sat level and correct again, and I just had to top up some lost ABC fluid. If you buy ABC fluid from the Mercedes dealer, you're going to pay considerably more than if you buy it at your local auto parts store. It's Pentacin CHF11S, I believe. Again, cross-reference that online if you need to. So the experience of driving the SL, what is this like? Well, let me tell you what it's not. It is not a sports car. This is not a Canyon Carving Boxster or 911, nothing like that. This car is a full-blooded Grand Tourer. It is wonderful in that capacity. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a great cruiser. It is a far better car than you might expect. If you want power, in the similar era, if you like this particular original body style pre-facelift, or even actually, I guess, the first facelift at 09 model year, get an SL55. That has a 5.5 liter V8 with a supercharger. And I used to own a supercharged Thunderbird. The whine of a supercharger is addictive. But the AMG variant, very, very fast car. And the engine is extremely reliable, as is the base engine in this, the M113 5-liter V8, naturally aspirated, 302 horsepower and somewhere around 330 pounds of torque. Now, for those real historians out there, you might note that 5-liter equates to approximately 302 cubic inches, and that would yield 1 horsepower per cubic inch, which at one point in time was a big deal, but in this era now of turbocharged engines, 1 horsepower per cubic inch is a little on the low side. But for a naturally aspirated power plant, it's still kind of cool to know that you've got something that ticks that somewhat legendary performance index. It's not a super quick car though. 0 to 60, I believe, is somewhere around 6.1. Believe me, it keeps up in modern day traffic just fine. Where I find maybe a little extra caution or hesitation is doing a long pass on a 2-lane road. You just don't have instant power. My other 2 Mercedes we're not going to talk about the 300 SEL, it's not turbocharged. My other 2 cars run the 4.7 twin turbo V8, and you just have instant power. Specifically the S-Class coupe that I have with 449 horsepower and 516 pounds of torque. You don't have to wait. You just put your foot down and you go. It's a rush, but you're kind of missing some things like the wonderful exhaust note. This car has a nice little rumble to it. I could enhance it further, but at some point in time you really have to ask yourself, how much money are you going to put into a car that is aging and complicated? So keep it running, keep it looking nice. Some mild upgrades, not a problem, but I'm not going to do, like for example, a catback exhaust on this. No need to. Better money spent on other project cars, or maybe some other upgrades for other cars, or just simply maintenance. Which gets me to the maintenance thing. If you are a real Mercedes fan, I would encourage you to check out a channel called Mercedes Source. The gentleman who runs that, Kent Bergsma, I believe is the last name, he's mentioned that he is an airplane pilot, or was an airplane pilot and mechanic, and he says if you're going to own an R230, you must approach this car with aircraft levels of maintenance discipline. And I would agree. I think you have to do more preventative work on this car than you would with other Mercedes. I mean, even the Airmatic system, which I had to do a repair on a couple weeks ago on my CLS, that has less consequence if you have a problem. If you have a problem in this car, you're dealing with hydraulic fluid leaks, you're dealing with possible debris entering through the hydraulic lines, causing more problems, potentially pump problems. I think you're really better off doing more preventative maintenance with an R230 ABC equipped car. My understanding is the real base model, which I don't think we even got in North America, with the M112 V6, that was coil suspension only. And of course, if you are lucky enough and have the means to have an SL65 AMG Black, That car does not have ABC. So how about that? The entry level and the utmost, silliest, craziest version of this car does not have ABC. Any rate, side point. If you want to learn more about the SL65 AMG Black, Google that. It is a truly amazing supercar. Typically understated Mercedes manner, but it's a real amazing vehicle. So I hope this gives you some insight to the R230. Always, if you're looking at a used car, prioritize condition over specification. This is a rather base model car, and at 19 years old, I think that actually swings in your favor if you're trying to maintain it on a DIY basis. Otherwise, you know, there are a lot of them out there. Most have decent ownership history. Do remember, and I think this is probably the last point, when these cars were brand new, they were adjusted for today's Canadian dollars, $140,000, $150,000 car. You can get them as low as $5,000 or $6,000 for a runner. But remember, you're buying the maintenance schedule of $140,000 or $150,000 car. It is not the maintenance schedule of a Honda Civic. If you don't want to do maintenance or can't afford it, this is not the car for you. Find something else. And there are plenty of other choices. But if you really appreciate Mercedes engineering and some gadgetry and can live with the bills and hopefully be brave enough to take on the work yourself, this can be an absolutely wonderful young timer classic to run. And I hope that gives you good insight. We'll do a walk around at some point in time, and I'll point out all the things that I've done to the car from a cosmetic standpoint, tire choice, rim choice, that kind of stuff. But for driving impressions, that's about all I've got to say. So until we talk again, which hopefully will be within the next week, and we'll finally bring the 300 SEL project car home. It's taken a little bit longer to get it sorted. It's part of the problem of having an older car. It's 35 years old. When you need parts, some of them, while still available, can be a little bit more of a challenge to find. But we'll go through everything that needed to be done to get that car up to snuff, and then the strategy going forward to get it in tip-top shape. And I look forward to bringing that to you. At any rate, take care. The day might be clearing. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll spend some time on the boat this weekend working on boat projects. Yeah, well, gotta have stuff to keep you going. Keeps life fun. Have a good one. Bye for now, folks.